Hey, fans of Intrepid. Welcome to our live virtual programming. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to hearing your questions during the program or at the end of the program, wherever you want to throw them in. They'll come up in the comments, and I can address those on the spot or at the end. The museum's live streams are free, and if you would like to support us in delivering this content, there's a link below. Give that a click. That keeps these things free or cheap. And we just love doing them for you and love to spend time with you, just very briefly talking about airplane stuff. Probably in the coming weeks, Peter's getting ready to get the Skyray into the hangar and start that. So we're going to start going back into the hangar. We were doing that a lot earlier in the summer when they were working on the Cougar. Just a live feed in there and seeing what they were doing. And we're going to do that with Skyray. There's a lot of interest in the Skyray, and there's a lot of work to do in the Skyray. And we have some new crew members up there, and we're going to be bringing our volunteers back. Now that they're vaccinated, we're going to bring some volunteers in to help. So you're going to see a whole lot more action in the aircraft restoration hangar. Hey, I'm Eric Boehm, by the way. I am Curator of Aviation. And today I want to talk about, actually, I had a comment come through my email said, hey, what about helicopters? And I've done the HUP, the Piasecki, but I got a request to do more helicopters, so I'm going to do the Sikorsky HH-52 Seaguard. Let me get my funny face out of the way and come over here. Boy, what a great helicopter to have in our collection, and it's just it's been an amazing attention getter. We have the inside all kind of fixed up and nice, and we actually let children get inside during our we do birthday parties or special VIP tours, and we let folks get inside and see what the inside's like. And we've actually made it kid-proof inside. We've actually fortified a lot of the structure inside. Last time it cycled through the ARH, so Peter did a great job with that. Completely replaced the floor in there. So I really can't go too far about talking about Sikorsky helicopters without mentioning Igor Sikorsky. Boy, what an amazing career. He was born in Russia, when he was there in the early 1900s, he developed mainly multi-engine, large multi-engine airplanes in Russia in the early 1900s. And these were just, you're talking 10 to 15 years after the Wright brothers flew, and he's making these just the largest airplanes in the world. After immigrating to the United States, became a noted designer of flying boats for transatlantic flights, transoceanic, actually. His career did not end there. A lot of people say he had 3 careers in aviation: those big bombers and transport airplanes in Russia, then the flying boats, but then really, when he was here in the United States, he designed and built the first practical helicopters in the U.S. Before we even got involved in World War II back in 1939. So that's Igor. We just can't say enough about him. The story about Igor Sikorsky would just take hours and hours, and there's plenty of books written. So let's just talk about our little helicopter here. In 1962, the U.S. Coast Guard selected a modified commercial helicopter. It was the Sikorsky S-62 as a replacement for its older Chickasaws and Choctaws. That's the H-19 and the H-34 that I'm showing you in these images here. We actually have an HRS / H-19 on display on Intrepid, which we've just recently repainted. And maybe I'll do that one in a coming episode of this Aircraft of the Month. But these helicopters were very capable. Wonderful system was developed mainly in the rotor and gearbox system and the tail rotor system. Very reliable, just super helicopters. Notice they have that big bulbous nose. In that bulbous nose is the engine. Let's go quickly up here. There you see this is a reciprocating radial engine, just like in your World War II fighters, like the Hellcat or the Avenger or the Corsair. A radial engine, and you notice the angle it's mounted at. The drive shaft goes right up between the 2 pilots, right up through the cockpit to the gearbox up in the top. Both these helicopters had that configuration. Looking at the HRS, which was the first of this series, notice it has 4 landing gear. Now, a little bit of an anecdotal story, and I haven't been really able to prove, but I used to know in my model airplaning days, flying free flight model airplanes. I had a very good friend who was much older than I. He passed away a few years ago, but he was actually right out of college. One of his first jobs was as an engineer with Sikorsky towards the end of World War II when they were developing this rotor blade system. And his great story from him was that, notice the landing gear configuration on the HRS. It's got 4 landing gears, four tires, so to speak, kind of like in a standard configuration like a car, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. He said the problem with the helicopter that they didn't really understand very well was vibration harmonics. The 3-blade rotor system, it has a vibration harmonic that resonates through the whole airframe of it. And when all 4 tires are touching the ground, you're kind of okay. Coming in for a landing, they always tried to land these things. This is according to him now. If anybody has this story that can, just validate this story for me, please let me know in the comments or email me. But he said when they tried to land these things, they would land on the 2 back wheels or even the 2 front wheels, whatever worked best, and then the other 2. But you never wanted 3 tires touching the ground while you were in a hover, because the harmonics would just make a really violent vibration. So you need to either have 2 tires touching the ground or all 4. And I did get a chance to ride in one of these. I have a friend out here in New Jersey who actually owned one of these vintage helicopters. He has since sold it, but he gave me a ride in it, and he kind of confirmed that. He said, well, I've never tried to land on 3 landing, uneven ground. If you're going to get 3 landing gear touching the ground, he said that doesn't sound good anyway. So he's never experienced it, but the thing does kind of rock and roll. It does really vibrate a lot when it's sitting on the ground. You can feel it through the seat of your pants. You can feel it. Your whole body is just kind of shaking. As soon as it lifts off the ground, it is smooth as silk. It felt like riding in a Cadillac. It was just a very smooth helicopter when it was in the air, not so much on the ground. So interesting that they modified the HRS, and you see the HSS or the H-34 in this picture. Same configuration, same rotor blade and transmission and tail rotor technology. Notice that the shape of the fuselage has changed, and that the landing gear configuration has gone to a 3 wheels, 2 forward and 1 tail wheel. And as far as I know, I've never seen 4 landing gear on a helicopter that had 3 rotor blades ever again. So there must be some truth to that story. So I digress, going off on a tangent there with that helicopter, but Sikorsky wanted to develop something with a turbine engine, and they used that proven rotor system and tail rotor system and the transmission system from the HRS and the HSS, and they developed this. And there was no military contract that preceded this. It was something that in the mid to late 1950s. In fact, this photograph was dated 1959. Sikorsky made it a single turbine jet engine. You can see it right on top above the cockpit there. You can see the intake for it right into the transmission. It's a T-58 turbine engine. It was the first turbine-powered helicopter to be certified by the FAA. Using all those proven components made this pretty quick to develop and saved a whole lot in development costs too, because the rotor system was proven. It didn't matter what power system was going to it, whether it was that reciprocating engine in the earlier models or this jet engine. It just really worked really well. They really had no takers on it. There was a few civilian helicopter operators that were very interested in it. The Navy had no interest in it. And if you remember my chats about some of the jet aircraft from this era, the Navy really did not like the single engine configuration. They were already looking into another Sikorsky product, the S-61, which would become the H-3 series of helicopters, which had 2 of these engines in there. And then now you had the redundancy, that extra safety of an extra engine for overwater operations. And the Navy really loved that helicopter. It was also a little bit larger than this, and lasted quite a while in Navy service. Really a wonderful helicopter, the H-3. We do not have one on display at Intrepid. I've been kind of looking for one. Really don't have room for it if I found it at the moment, but I was looking for one. I actually researched some of the helicopters used in the space flight recoveries, especially those 2 recoveries that brought astronauts to Intrepid Scott Carpenter's Mercury mission and the Grissom-Young Gemini mission. And the helicopters actually used in that, I was using photograph evidence, determined their bureau numbers, and then found out that both those helicopters were turned in for scrap and lost to history. I was several years late in looking for them, so couldn't save them, but sure wish I had one of those on board Intrepid. Notice you can see some differences in, other than having that jet engine up on top of the fuselage, you can actually see that the entire fuselage has changed. It kind of looks similar with that big old tail boom like the HSS had in the 3-wheel configuration. But now you can see that there is a lot of changes going on here. Mainly that shape of the fuselage. It looks like a boat hull, because it's exactly what it is. Like I said, the Seaguard used a single General Electric T-58 jet engine, that gas turbine up on top there. It was capable of deploying rescue swimmers and lifting survivors from the water, or landing on decks of ships. It was you could land in pretty heavy sea states, actually, also land right on the water and taxi in the water. Let's move on here. We saw that already. And here's a great shot from below. And now you can see some of the configuration changes. The pilots had a little bit better visibility downward from this configuration, extra cockpit glazing there right at their feet. Look downward. The boat hull, this thing could land in water. When you close that door, it is actually watertight. Notice where the landing gear are. The landing gear are on what's called sponsons or floats. Those are extra structures. There's no fuel in there. There's nothing in there but air. They're a watertight flotation device. It's an aluminum shell, so to speak. And the landing gear can partially retract. It doesn't fully retract up into the sponson, but it does partially retract, cutting down drag just a bit. Here we see one in the water. So the underside shaped like a boat hull, like I mentioned, watertight, partially retractable landing gear. Also equipped with several other features unique to the search and rescue role, including a folding platform, which not visible. Is something we have one in the storage area inside our helicopter on display, and we can actually break that out and show people how it's used. But it's a little platform that kind of hooks right on the lip of the door there, letting the guys doing the rescue kind of step out of the helicopter. Also notice right above the door, there's a hoist, and that hoist can lower down to pick anybody up. Remember, if you recall, or if you were paying attention during the HUP talk, that rescue hoist was actually inside the helicopter where the pilot sits. They had to fold up one of the seats, so one pilot would fly, the other pilot would have to get out of the way, fold the seat up, open a door in the belly, and lower the rescue hoist down through the hatch in the belly, which was really inconvenient and not super safe when you have one guy flying the machine and then bringing an incapacitated pilot up right alongside of him with the rescue hoist. So the rescue hoist moved to an external configuration, external mount, right above that big sliding door. Yeah, here's a really great shot of an HH-52. Notice that the paint scheme is reversed. Instead of an orange stripe on white, it's a white stripe on orange, and you could probably guess why that is. And that's for use in Arctic or Antarctic, locations, places where there's a lot of snow. Notice the Coast Guard doesn't camouflage their airplanes like the Navy or the Marines or the Air Force does. The Coast Guard loves the bright colors because they want to be seen. Their main job is to be seen and to rescue folks. And here you see one in that orange paint scheme. Take a look at the sponsons. You'll notice a piece of fabric on the outboard end of that sponson right there. For added flotation, there was like a rubber membrane inside there, and it's all folded up and it's behind snaps. And with a pull of a handle inside, a compressed air bottle would feed air into those things, and they would inflate one on each side, and you would actually increase the buoyancy. So now you can carry more weight on the surface of the water if you had to pick up more people off the surface of the water. But an ingenious device. The set on ours on display was very deteriorated. We have since kind of faked it a little bit. These bladders, of course, are not available any longer, but we're going to kind of simulate that fabric bags on the side because it is part of the original equipment of the machine. So here's a great shot based on the paint scheme on this helicopter. I would say this is probably in the early 60s. Looks like there's been a house blown off its foundation by some hurricane, and some poor soul on top of his house looking to get away from it, and Coast Guard swooping in to get him. This is a great shot, another one in flight with the kind of the more modern paint scheme. You see the difference in the paint schemes there. See, notice the stripe on the fuselage, I guess, is the big one in the forward, the chevron paint scheme on the nose of that. They changed it just a bit. But notice the basket hanging off the hoist, and you have your rescuemen in the doorway looking down, and it looks like they're going to go down and pick somebody up. So that device is called the Erickson basket, named after its inventor, Commander Frank Erickson. During World War II, Erickson was the first U.S. Coast Guard pilot trained to fly helicopters. This is during World War II. A lot of people don't know that helicopters were coming of age during the war. If not, they were not used to great success until the Korean War 5 years later, but they were flying helicopters during the war. In fact, he earned his designation as Coast Guard helicopter pilot #1 in 1943, and he commanded the Coast Guard Air Station in Brooklyn, New York, right around the corner from us, that was really the world's very first helicopter training base, right there in Brooklyn. So a great shot of an Erickson basket there. On a side note, talking about Coast Guard pilots, used to have a volunteer. His name was Danny. I won't use your last name, Danny, if you're out there listening. Danny, you know who you are. He came to us as a very young volunteer. He went off to Embry-Riddle University, got his degree, got his pilot's license, became a helicopter pilot in the U.S. Coast Guard. And to this day, he is sporting the rank of lieutenant commander, and he flies Dolphin helicopters, and he's rescued quite a few people on his own. But he came to us as a volunteer about 15 years ago. Wonderful young man. I haven't seen him in a few years, but every once in a while he flies over Intrepid and lets me know. Get the wave. So I'm going to kind of go a little off here and talk about a story involving HH-52s, but this is kind of fun. Make sure you have something orange, red, or yellow with you when you're boating so I can find you when you need help. The U.S. Coast Guard Search and Rescue, showing a pigeon with binoculars and a little sailor hat on. And now this isn't just a cutesy little poster to show Coast Guardsmen as pigeons. There was actually a program using pigeons. Back in the late 1970s, early 1980s, the Coast Guard used Seaguard helicopters to test a kind of a crazy idea. It was called Project Sea Hunt, and they tested the use of actual pigeons for spotting people lost at sea. And I didn't believe it when I first heard the story, but it's really a remarkable story. Here's a great shot of an HH-52. Notice right underneath the open door, there seems to be a cage or a basket. I might have a better picture of that. There's a little bit of a close-up that I took. Same image. You see the attachment, the chamber, as it was called. And in that chamber would be our friendly little pigeons. And what they did is, well, these birds have incredible eyesight. They can be trained to press a button when they see a certain color. And when they press the button, they're rewarded with a little food pellet. Now you put them in this little attachment hanging below the helicopter, and they have 360-degree view all the way around. And if there is something on the wide open ocean, and if you've ever been flying over the ocean, it's hard to see stuff with the waves and the whitecaps and stuff. But these pigeons had such incredible eyesight that if somebody in a yellow life vest or orange or red, any color, bright color like that, other than the color of the water, the bird would see it, and they were trained to peck at a button to get their food pellet when they saw that color. And of course, these buttons would be around the inside. So if the sighting was made off to the right, of course, the bird would hit the button on the right, and the pilot then knew that he could turn right and hopefully get a better look at what the bird was seeing. So the test proved, let me go back here. The test proved that the birds could spot a distant target, like a life preserver, as long as it's yellow, orange, or red, on the first pass 90% of the time. And the absolute best a human ever did was less than 50%. 90% viewing for the birds, 50% for humans. And you've been wondering why this system isn't still being used today. Well, there was budget cuts, of course, in the 1980s, but improvement in other locating technologies led to the cancellation of the program. But I just think it's fascinating that is, there's always been use of animals and different things in the Navy, from spotting bombs underwater and things like that, but using dolphins. But here's a pigeon being used to find people. I just thought that was a remarkable story. Here is the HH-52 as it is on the deck of Intrepid now. And we have a lot of trouble keeping this one clean because of the white paint job. We have very few white airplanes up there. This and the T-38, I mean, maybe the only ones that are white, a T-34. But very hard to keep white paint clean in that New York City environment. And I'd love to take your questions if you have any. And I'll come back on screen. And if there are no questions today, that's fine. These things end up on our YouTube channel, and sometimes questions come in late, and I entertain those when they come in, and that's great. There are a lot of fun comments come in, and if there's any kind of airplanes you'd like to see that I haven't covered yet, whether we have it on our ship or not, let me know, and I'd love to talk about it. There's nothing better than talking about airplanes. Thank you for watching and sharing this with me. The museum has introduced a number of new live streams. The education department is doing bunches of them, and they're so much fun and so wonderful. Catch Alicia on some of her programming, and she's just so much fun to watch. Follow and subscribe to this channel. Visit our website, and don't forget the links below if you want to make a donation. Until then, let me do one more reminder. If you've been watching the Atlas Obscura programs we did, we were just last week, we were inside the space shuttle again, this time with Mario Runco, a three-time shuttle astronaut who gave us his personal insight into flying in space from inside the Space Shuttle Enterprise. We have another one coming up on October 12th. That's a Tuesday night. I think it begins about 6:30 p.m. But you can go to our website. You can also go to Atlas Obscura's website and see when that takes place. It's October 12th. We're going to be talking about the F-14 Tomcat, and got another surprise visitor, another astronaut. His name is Scott Altman. Scott Altman is also, his nickname is Scooter, and I love calling a grown man Scooter. It's so much fun. But Scooter was actually a test pilot during the F-14 program, so he knows everything about that airplane. And then after that, you're all familiar with the Top Gun movie with Tom Cruise. He's the guy that did the real flying for Tom Cruise. So all those flying scenes is actually Scooter Altman. And then after that, he became an astronaut. And so Scooter Altman's a real fun guy to talk to with all those different careers in aviation, and talking about the F-14, October 12th. And then got another Atlas Obscura program coming up in November. That'll be November 9th, and that'll be about our Concorde. And I'm going to have a Concorde pilot actually inside the airplane with me. So until next time, we'll see you. Enjoy.